golf fans? It's your boy Luke here with our round 1 prize picks targets for this week's Travelers Championship. Last week at the US Open was a pretty solid week for our prize picks cards. Just unfortunately couldn't end round 4 with a bang. Ended up going 2 for 2, so all good things have to come to an end at one point. But now looking forward to this week and taking down the Travelers Championship at TPC River Highlands. In this video, we'll be covering my top 5 props here for Thursday's round, but most importantly, how I expect the golf course to play. We'll be doing some research on some of the GAR percentages, also the fairway percentages from last year, to give you an idea of how to construct your cards here for Thursday. So excited to hop on into it, a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. All right, I've got data golf on the screen and just a few things I want to walk through before we talk about the weather, and then of course our card here for Thursday. So the scoring average, one of the easier golf courses on tour. The scoring average was about 1/3 of a stroke under par last year, which is 1/10 of a stroke easier than what we're used to seeing on tour. So you can see the scoring average was low, right? The winner was -13, but not something in that 20 to 25 under range like what you'd see at a Tournament of Champions or another one of those quote-unquote birdie fests, like what we had at the AT&T Byron Nelson. On the flip side, even though it's not the easiest golf course on tour, the greens here very easy to hit, and same thing with the fairways. So the GAR percentage is 70.3%, a whole 2.1% higher than the tour average, and the driving accuracy almost a whole 4% higher than what we're used to seeing. So when we take a look at the fairways, also the greens board, you're going to see that there's a lot of prices a lot higher than what we saw at Brookline, right? A lot of projections there are in that 10.5 to 12 range at Brookline. This week, pretty much the minimum is going to be right around a 12. And you even have somebody like a Sam Burns projected for 13 greens. And that's because you hit a ton around this golf course. And for Thursday's round specifically, I'd expect even more greens to be hit because we have rain in the forecast. If you take a look at Wednesday, there's some isolated showers in the area. Today, there's not that much rain, but with all this rain they're getting on Wednesday, we're going to have extremely receptive conditions. And these greens up here in Cromwell, Connecticut, already tend to be receptive to begin with. So you're going to talk about absolute dartboards out there, particularly if it continues to rain on Thursday. Now, given that it's a little bit of a heavier rain in the morning, I would prefer my players to be teeing off in the afternoon, but even if they're playing in this light drizzle for most of the morning, I wouldn't expect it to impact play all that much. I mean, at the Wells Fargo Championship, it was a steady rain all day. That did cause a little bit of havoc, but that moisture makes hitting greens easier. You just have to be playing out of the fairway. So you'll see when we get to our board here, I am taking a look at a lot of the green props, but I'm also taking a look at driving stats, because if you're playing out of the rough, it doesn't matter how solid you are on approach. You're going to have to be hitting out of the short stuff this week to go out there and hit those 13 to 14 greens that I'm looking for. So that's just a look at the weather. The wind isn't that crazy, right? It's just like 5 to 10 miles an hour for most of the day in terms of the sustained winds. A little bit more significant gusts. They're in that 15 to 20 mile an hour range. But this is an easy golf course to begin with. I wouldn't expect it to be absolute carnage out there. So with all that being said, what are the props that I'm taking? And the first one we'll touch on will be Justin Thomas over greens in regulation. Absolutely love him at 12.5, even though he's one of the highest projections on the slate. He's also one of the best iron players on tour. And if the average player, and at a 70.3% rate, guys, is going to hit 12.6 greens, that means that, you know, if you just take the bum out of the field, right, just anybody at random out of the field, they're likely going to go over 12.5 greens. So if you're going to get an elite level iron player like Justin Thomas on receptive greens because of all that moisture in the area, I'm going to love it even more. And the real X factor here is that he's one of the better players playing out of the rough. So even though he's playing in the morning wave, is going to be when that drizzle is coming down, I'm not as worried about it with him as it would be for most players. He's got the strength to hit it out of that rough, and even last week at Brookline was able to hit quite a few greens despite not having his stuff with the driver off the tee there. So I like him there at 12.5 greens, certainly taking the over, going to be one of my core picks. Next up, we've got Jordan Spieth, who I'm taking at 12 greens, and the 12 number is just something you have to smash. Like I said, the average player is going to hit 12.6 greens, let alone somebody like Jordan Spieth, who is one of the better iron players on tour and averages close to 3/4 of a stroke gained per round with his approach play. So love him there. Have him projected for well over 13 greens. Really a no-brainer play for me. I mean, he's even won this event before, has had plenty of success around TPC River Highlands. I think this is one of the more mispriced boards that we've seen for quite some time. And really, the only thing that can derail us here for Thursday is if that rain's a little bit more significant than we think. But as of right now, I mean, it looks like it's as significant as we're going to get, and it could get even more clear, right? A lot of times, 2-3 days out when it comes to a weather forecast, they end up being completely wrong, right? If it only rains tomorrow, it just makes these greens receptive and we get clear conditions there on Thursday. I mean, these props are going to smash. It's like not even going to be close. I mean, all of them are going to go over emphatically, something in that 13 to 14 range, maybe even hitting 15 or 16 greens, because that's how high the percentage is here, right? The average is hitting 12.5. I mean, what do we expect these elite level players to do, right? So I have them projected for well over 13 and a half greens. My favorite prop on the board is the Jordan Spieth prop. Next up, we have Patrick Cantley at 12 greens. And one thing to note is that Jordan Spieth is playing in the afternoon. Same thing with Patrick Cantley. So if we're going to worry about the weather, we don't really have to worry about these two picks. And both of them are at 12 greens. If it is a little bit calmer in the afternoon, they're not dealing with that drizzle. You're going to be dealing with the most receptive greens humanly imaginable. And Patrick Cantley, a top 10 player in the world, we'd expect to do well better than average with his iron play. So another player I have projected for well over 13 greens, closer to 13.4 for a Patrick Cantley. So not as significant of an edge as what we have with a Jordan Spieth. But again, one of the favorite props I've seen on the board for quite some time. And now lastly, for the GIR props, we have Tony Feno at 12. Now he is playing in the morning, which is the slightly disadvantageous wave, but Tony Feno is also one of the best iron players in the world, period. This guy is one of the best players out of the rough as well, so even if he is spraying it off the tee, I wouldn't expect it to cause him all that many issues. But more importantly than that, he's shown an ability to club down off the tee at these short golf courses. He doesn't have that ego of a Bryson DeChambeau, even of a Brooks Koepka that you'll see from time to time. He's willing to kind of tone it back, not go out there full force, hit something like a driving iron off the tee, and rely on that accuracy with his irons. So I have him projected for closer to 13.5 greens, even in the disadvantageous wave, making him, again, one of my favorite props I've seen for quite some time. I absolutely love these JIR props, which is why I'm taking 4 overs. And that's why we have to go over here to the matchups to wash away the multiplier, because if we just took these 4 overs together, you're not going to get much of a multiplier there, right? There's a correlation there. But the only reason we're using this matchup prop is to quote-unquote wash that multiplier away. So what I'm going to be doing for the first round is taking a ton of these JR props and just mixing in a random matchup. Right? It might just be 3 of the GIR props, maybe all the ones at 12. Those are the ones I like the most. And then mixing in one of these matchups to make it a 4-leg power. And there's going to be plenty of matchups we touch on. So I'm not just going to talk about this Brooks Koepka one, which I like because of his distractions, obviously going to the Live Tour. Not sure how engaged he's going to be for this event. And frankly, I think he could withdraw. So he might not even end up playing here. So a few other props that I'd take, I'd go the over on Scotty Scheffler versus Neiman, the over on Rory McIlroy versus Davis Riley. I mean, a lot of these props up top, I mean, Jordan Spieth, if you're not using the GIR prop, right, take the over against Jason Day. Tony Feno against Johnny Vegas. I don't hate Jason Kokrak against Lanto Griffin. That's how I'm going to be structuring my cards here. It's just taking a bunch of these JIR props and then mixing in a matchup to make it a 4-leg power. And I'm really looking forward to it because, like I said, these props at 12 GIR are some of the favorite that I've seen for quite some time. So, and it's only going to smash even more if we end up getting clear weather on Thursday, which is always in the possibilities. I mean, I don't see it being an absolute slosh fest out there, right? They're already projecting it to be pretty significant rain. I expect it to only go in the calmer direction, if anything, come Thursday. Alrighty, that's all I've got for the round 1 picks. Before you hop on out of here, let me know in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. Go ahead and let me know a nugget why as well. And for me, it's got to be that Jordan Spieth prop, right? The 12 GIR. Going over that, something I have projected for 13.6, 13.7 greens in regulation. You're not going to find that type of edge very often when it comes to PGA DFS. So go ahead and let me know down below what you're taking. But as per usual, we'll have content out for rounds 2 through 4 at this event. So after the round ends, look forward to that video dropping maybe an hour or 2 afterwards. And also going to have even more content for the fantasy side. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel here, I'd highly recommend you do so. That way you don't miss any of those prize picks videos, but even more so, the course breakdowns I post, the fantasy content for DraftKings I do, showdown content if you're into that sort of thing for single round slates. I've got you completely covered. So best of luck with all of your lineups, all of your slips for this week, and let's get this cash, fellas.